Sometimes fighting inside the octagon isn't enough for some of these athletes. So much so that many of them decide to take it to the streets. And sure, a lot of these cases could have been avoided, but when an MMA fighter makes the news for the wrong reasons, it really does hit on another level entirely. These are 7 UFC fighters that were involved in real-life altercations. Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. We're gonna come out of the gate strong with one of the more recent entries on our list, the shocking sucker punch from Jorge Masvidal that saw him dish out some of his own form of justice on his friend-turned-enemy Colby Covington. Now, a lot of people were quick to point out that Masvidal had 25 minutes to go to work against his old training partner when they locked horns inside the octagon. But after being stifled by Covington's wrestling on his way to a unanimous decision defeat, it was clear that Jorge was left extremely frustrated after his performance. In one leaked video that showed Gamebred directly after the fight, he really does look like a broken man. And in true Colby fashion, he made sure to rub it in at every opportunity, releasing a selection of tweets and Instagram posts that were certainly designed to poke at Jorge. One evening, not too long after the fight, Colby was out in a Miami restaurant minding his own business when an incredibly angry and fired up Jorge Masvidal came up on him from behind, with his face concealed. After dishing out 2 blows that damaged the former title challenger's teeth and his $90,000 Rolex, Masvidal then shouted at Covington that he got what he deserved after talking about his kids. Naturally, the MMA community was split down the middle on how they felt about this attack. But all in all, Jorge was left at the mercy of quite a lot of criticism for what he did. Chael Sonnen. Another very recent entry comes up next, with the arrest of the former 3-time UFC title challenger Chael Sonnen. Now, despite him once being amongst the most divisive heel figures in the sport, in recent years, to say that Sonnen is well loved by the sport's fan base would be putting it lightly, with his popular YouTube channel serving as the platform for every single thought that pops up into his head. Chael has managed to endear himself to an entirely new generation of fans, but when a story emerged that Sonnen had gone on a minor rampage in a hotel in Las Vegas, we were all quite confused. Chael was charged with 5 counts of misdemeanor battery after allegedly attacking a random couple, choking one of them, while also causing damage to the premises before his eventual arrest. It all seemed a bit out of character for the usually professional former fighter. However, it later emerged that Chael, in his words, didn't remember the incident at all, claiming that he and his wife had taken Ambien to help them sleep. Stories of aggressive reactions to the drug are not unheard of, and when the details made it clear that the whole attack was totally unprovoked, it did appear to give some clarity to what had happened. Now, facing a total of 6 misdemeanors for his actions, this was yet another truly unfortunate turn of events. We're sure that more details will be released before too long, but most MMA fans were left very surprised by the witness's testimony. Bruce Buffer and Frank Trigg. Frank Trigg was once a 2-time UFC welterweight title challenger, having lost on both occasions to Matt Hughes, the second fight being UFC President Dana White's favorite fight of all time. Nowadays, you'll likely see him working as a referee, using his years of experience to bring some unique expertise to the cage. But for some of you, the name Frank Trigg might be best known for a truly crazy encounter he had with Bruce Buffer, of all people, a few years back. Trigg, Buffer, and Dana White were in an elevator on the night of a UFC event in the Hard Rock Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, and the welterweight veteran was speaking to Dana about his next fight. Buffer, who was standing to one side, noticed that White was wearing a beautiful watch. Now, according to the legendary ring announcer, he's a watch guy, a big fan of expensive watches. Naturally, he chimed in to ask Dana about his piece, and out of nowhere, Trigg karate chopped him in the neck for interrupting. Bruce then turned to his friend and asked him why he did that, and Trigg made the mistake of saying, "Well, what are you going to do about it?" And before Dana White knew it, he was in an elevator with his ring announcer and a former title contender having a full-on fight. This went on for 10 floors, before the elevator eventually stopped and the pair agreed to stop with it. Then, just seconds later, the 3 men were laughing about it like it was nothing. Buffer was forced to go to the emergency room due to a protruding bone in his thumb. But all in all, this remains one of the more iconic MMA legends, and Bruce Buffer and Frank Trigg are friends to this day.
So here's the elevator. We walk in, I'm at the door, Frank is over here, Dana's over here, and I turn to Dana, what a watch. And I'm sorry if I interrupted the brief moment they were having, you know, him asking for a job or whatever the case might be, because I didn't mean to do that. But when I did that, I got a ridge hand. He's over here, I'm facing here, and I get a ridge hand in my throat. And I turn around and I'm like, Frank, you hit me. Why the F did you hit me? And he said the wrong thing to me. He said, well, what are you gonna do about it? No. So I just reacted. I just went boom, boom, you know? And then it was on. And now the doors close and we're just throwing at each other for 10 floors.
Remember, if you're enjoying our content and want to see more, be sure to leave a like before subscribing to the channel so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. Fabricio Werdum and Colby Covington. Colby Covington makes his second appearance on our list, once again as a victim of an attack. Let's face it, he clearly brought it on himself when the welterweight contender took to the mic in a packed Brazil arena to attack the local crowd, calling them filthy animals and their homeland a dump. He surely knew that there would be consequences eventually, and after getting into a war of words with the legendary heavyweight Fabricio Werdum, even Colby must have been surprised when Werdum attacked him with a boomerang, throwing it at him from a distance before they were eventually separated. Nothing else really came of this incident, but as you might expect, the MMA community instantly latched onto this one as one of the most meme-worthy moments in quite some time. Most fighters let their fists do the talking, but when it comes to Fabricio Werdum, it's not hard to give him points for creativity. Cain Velasquez. This next entry is a truly unfortunate situation that left the MMA community hurt at its very core. Though a lot of fighters listed here have at least some history of misconduct, Cain Velasquez is not one of them. According to the official records, after learning that a relative of his had been molested on multiple occasions by an unnamed perpetrator, and the guy in question had got off scot-free in courtroom, the enraged former heavyweight champion tracked him down, ran him off the road, and proceeded to open fire on his vehicle. The problem? While the alleged abuser was in the car, the bullet did not hit its intended target, instead causing the man's stepfather non-life-threatening injuries. Cain was charged with attempted murder and will likely serve jail time, and though some of the MMA's biggest names wrote letters of support, this was truly a tragic turn of events. No matter which side of the fence you fall on, those who know Velasquez will tell you that he's not a bad man, or even a violent man when he's not competing. Instead, he acted impulsively and from a place of pain, making this a truly sad moment for this great competitor. Conor McGregor. One of the less famous Conor McGregor stories to have done the rounds in recent years was the claim from the Italian DJ Francesco Facchinetti that the Irishman had punched him randomly during a chance meeting they had at a party in Rome. Seriously, this story was definitely a talking point for a few days, but has since flown under the radar. But anyway, the DJ in question, who was the host of the Italian version of X Factor, claims that he met Conor as he was celebrating the baptism of his son. But after 2 hours spent together talking in a very civil and normal fashion, McGregor decided to punch him in the face out of nowhere, unprovoked. And that was the long and short story of what had happened. And as Facchinetti later explained, it was just as random as it sounds, given that the pair were having quite a normal conversation just before the altercation happened. In the end, the victim was left with a broken nose, and in the time since, McGregor has not made a comment on the matter. Whether any form of communication happened behind the scenes or not is anyone's guess, but this was certainly a very random turn of events, during a meeting that didn't seem to be headed towards a violent conclusion. Chances are, we're not getting the full story here, but for many, many fans of Conor McGregor, this bizarre news story has served as yet another unfortunate moment in a long string of very public issues surrounding the former two-weight world champion. Whether Conor can find his footing in the octagon again after a lengthy battle with injury or not is up for debate. But if one thing is for certain, it's that he will need to keep his nose out of trouble if he is planning on regaining the support of those who have been turned off of him in recent years. Nick Diaz and Joe Riggs. Whether you love him or hate him, there's no denying that Nick Diaz is just about as real as it gets. But even he and his brother Nate have a good underlying sense of sportsmanship, especially when it comes to offering good faith after a hard-fought battle. Or at least that was the case on 99% of occasions, because on one legendary night for the MMA history books, the fight didn't exactly finish inside the cage. Nick, in the middle of a bit of a rough patch in his first UFC run, after losing out to Diego Sanchez on the scorecards, despite it being a truly riveting affair, next up for the Stockton legend was Joe Riggs. And in his determination to try and bounce back with a win, Nick really let him have it as far as his trash talking was concerned. Whether it was the pre-fight face-offs or the seconds that preceded their fight, it was pretty clear that these two just could not wait to get their hands on one another. Riggs managed to get the unanimous decision victory when all was said and done, and just for one brief moment, it looked like these two maybe would put their bad blood behind them and move on. But later, it emerged that Riggs and Diaz had actually gotten into a full-on fist fight in the hospital that the UFC had placed them both in. According to Nick, he shouted across to Riggs, telling him that even though he had won the fight, he would still have no problem beating his ass. As you might expect, this caused things to kick off in a major way, and by the sounds of things, it was an even crazier scene than their actual UFC contest. They just don't make him like Nick Diaz anymore, that's for sure.
You know what I mean? I'll fight him all night. He was here right now, I'll fight him right now. I ain't no bitch. He walked over to my side of the hospital though, and I fucking knocked him down. And then he got up and started trying to take me down. And then I put double underhooks because he had a single leg. And then I turned him around, you know, because I'm hopping on one leg. And I hopped him into the little office right next to the doors. Right. You know, where the emergency doors open. You can't get in. You can't get in, but you can get out unless you're ambulance or whatever. And I would have hopped him through those doors. I don't know. I should have hopped him through the doors and outside. But I took it outside. But I hopped him into his room. I started punching him in the face up against the wall in his room. But he was like, you know, he was like, get your brother, man. Get your brother, man. Get your brother, man, please. You know, and I was, you know, he's like, get your brother. He's crazy. You know, I'm like, F you. And then the fucking security ran in, and grabbed me, and I stopped fighting the security and shit, you know. I was like, all right, I'm sorry. And fucking, you know, because they're about to tase us or some shit.
And that will just about do it for this video. Again, if you enjoyed today's video and want to see more, be sure to leave a like before subscribing to the channel so you can stay up to date with all of our latest uploads. Thanks for watching.